3, 2.
In recent times, we've heard on the news or read in articles about the publicization of religion and how that can be part of disagreements throughout the world and free societies, which begs the question.
How does the choice to publicize the Abrahamic religions contribute to the quality of life?
The Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, also known as ISIS, is a religious group based on Islam, which is a modern example of today's history that manipulates Muslims into doing planned terrorist attacks on important buildings such as the Stade de France in 2015. Elites of ISIS would convince desperate Muslims feeling as if they have no purpose in life that they can help them establish a proper caliphate which as their primary goal, which is proven to be untrue based on the unnecessary and attention-seeking acts documented throughout the 21st century. Rather than this primary objective, higher powers of ISIS chose to convert Muslims to an overall toxic group, giving not only Muslims a bad name, but also Islam itself. This created distrust with immigration in the United States and countries such as Saudi Arabia, Yemen, and Iraq. Another example of this is presented through Christianity, which began in the 1st century AD after Jesus of Nazareth was crucified in Judea, rapidly spreading throughout the Roman Empire afterwards. The religion itself preaches about the faith in God and good deeds will earn you access into heaven. However, the Crusades was an abuse of this power. The Crusades was a fight against Muslims and Christians for the Holy Land. Rachel Rooney, who has a PhD in the University of California, says that the spiritual reward was the indulgence, or the forgiveness of sins. Pope Urban II was able to bring young, gullible, and desperate men to fight in this crusade, which promised indulgence. This 200-year war only led to the bloodshed of 1.7 million people on both sides for a piece of land that may or may not have connected to their religion. This shows that religion was being used to manipulate and was being abused during this time. Rather than cooperating, they fought, which shows that Christianity was compelling them to harm others.
As my colleague discussed with the Crusades work, here is a famous Renaissance painting painted by Frederick Chopin, a famous Renaissance painter known for painting depicting the Crusades. In this painting, you can see in the foreground on the left that the Christian army is going to pillage this Islamic town looking for artifacts. But the most important part of this painting is in the background on the left, the giant cloud. This ominous cloud represents the hatred and destruction that the Christians are bringing to the Islamic town.
As my two colleagues on the previous slides have discussed, they talked about the Crusades, a fight between two of the most major religions in the world, Islam and Christianity. A quote stated by Ramchandra, "The globalization of local conflict serves powerful propaganda purposes on all sides, states in the fact that globalization has affected people in the fact that it affects their individual character, their gross distortions of the mind, and creates more violent and fanatical forms." As example from this picture of an Indian protest, the government, although very Hindu in nature, they created a law that banned Muslims from gaining citizenship, as that created more violent forms in the form of protest, which the people fought for.
Within the human mind, we as individuals rely on support to help us cope with issues such as religion. After leaving religion, many tend to establish a social community and seclude themselves of guilt from past decisions, depression from losing God, and anxiety, which can result in a condition diagnosed as religious trauma syndrome. Bibliometric studies is a high demand and fast-growing statistical area for the analysis of scientific literature in a certain field, such as religion. Studies of the field of bibliometric studies can help correlate not only how the effect of both religion and studies can impact individuals, but the mental state when they're counteracting. As the image shown, religious coping deals with spiritual well-being, intimate partner violence, and depressive symptoms that all counteract with religious coping. A quote stated by Schiffman, weaponized scripture and religion to do very deep damage to the study, resembles the fact that not only is religion used to achieve the goals of salvation of oneself and others, but since there are multiple different religions found globally, practices on mental capabilities can differ. An example of mental capability differing is God condemning the LGBT plus community. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender members or individuals are at risk of having religious experiences, or negative experiences, with religious, and furthermore, negative religious experiences can lead to religious or spiritual struggles and a loss of religious or spiritual identity to maintain sexuality identity. However, connecting back to my peer, ISIS uses methods and studies of the mind, such as bibliometric studies, to lure not only young men and women, but they try to convince those who have no sense of hope or purpose. This not only relates to bibliometric studies, but to the psych as well.
Another group similar to ISIS is the Taliban, an Islamic hate group. The Taliban believe, like most Muslims believe, that it's their duty to create purity among men. With this ideology, in 2001, the Taliban bombed a Buddhist statue as depicted in this before and after photograph. The Taliban manipulated the Quran, like the quote suggests, and to achieve their fundamentalist ideas. This photograph depicts the catastrophic religious-based event that has affected many Buddhists psychologically. Because of all these dangers and destructions, there needs to be solutions set in place. One of these solutions is adding regulation of laws. The United Nations need to work together to add laws to regulate new religious groups being formed to ensure that they will not cause harm, and regulate religious teachings in school to make sure kids get both perspectives on what their religions caused. However, this would cause an uprising between the three Abrahamic religions and their followers because they will no longer have all of their rights that they originally had, which leads me to my next limitation of there will no longer be a separation between church and state, which in many of the nations that are involved in the United Nations have in there.
Another solution is that there should be a place that helps victims of religious trauma, presented through my colleague's slide. Of course, therapists have to be present for these sessions to help these patients and victims cope with their either physical, emotional, or mental trauma. For this to work, they should have these organizations in each state.
An implication of the solution, however, is high publication. Though you may think that it's the 21st century and that it's not really hard to publicate a lot of stuff, but in actuality, it would be very difficult, as in not a lot of people would be interested or would know about this. So this would cost a lot of money, which leads into our limitation, inflated finances, as in advertisements for this organization would be very expensive and to spread out to everyone and everywhere.
Although the three Abrahamic religions can cause and make you feel like you have your own culture and belonging and allow you to be in a group of a common belief, it does cause hatred and destruction sometimes, and the precautions and solutions that my peers have suggested need to be implicated in order to make sure everyone is living in a safe world. Here's our works cited and our images cited.
Okay, Jason, I'm going to start with you. How did the group decide to include Aaron's perspective, lens, or conclusion into the overall presentation?
The group decided to include Aaron's lens, the artistic lens, to connect everyone together rather than being separated from everyone's into specific slides. As seen from the two paintings, she connected scientific and historical and political together by using that to see how further develop the events that would influence our presentation.
Okay. Next is Braden. Reflecting on your colleagues' work, which one had the greatest impact on your overall understanding of the problem the group identified?
My overall understanding for the best peer was most likely Cameron, due to the multiple statistics and findings that they had on not only past religion but current day issues such as ISIS, and how we can solve the issues further on with different hate groups.
Okay, Cam, what is a way in which your team's resolution makes you think differently about your own individual research?
I think that there are presentations on how it can affect the psyche, how paintings and artwork affected different groups, and with cultural, my understanding changed because I was more focused on how religion was affecting others in the past rather than now.
Okay. And then finally, Aaron, describe an argument from one of your peers' individual reports that made you think differently about your team's solution or conclusion.
From Jason's individual report, he discussed the fact that religion can provide a sense of culture. So we wanted to make sure that religion was still available for people who want that sense of culture and finding between something. But we need to make sure that there was adjustments set to the laws to ensure that people are not abusing their religious power.